I've been doing another playthrough of New Vegas, and I've gotten to the point where it's time to start going through the DLCs, which is very exciting because they mean a lot to gamers as a whole. The reason why New Vegas' downloadable content was really important was because so many games were just arbitrarily adding nonsense to games just to squeeze a few more dollars out of naive gamers. We were getting wise to their schemes. There was a point where people refused to buy DLC at all, regardless of how good it was, because 90% of it was garbage. I mean, we got $5 horse armor for Oblivion. Really? Really? I bought it, naturally, but really? So, when New Vegas added actual content and didn't just repair broken parts of the original game, everyone went ballistic. It was shown to companies that people would buy more of a game if it was actually more of a game. Naturally, since it was a good thing that everyone liked, corporations decided that it would never happen again, and all DLC was a disappointment moving forward. To be fair to corporate America, I will say gamers, as a species, are very ungrateful. There's millions of forum posts debating whether the New Vegas DLCs are good at all, and billions of posts arguing which one is the best. Well, I'm here to answer that question. Dead Money is the best DLC. Now, you probably heard that and thought something along the lines of liar, or no, or Dead Money is the worst one. And you're entitled to that wrong opinion, but here's an entire YouTube video explaining why that simply isn't true. Dead Money's primary theme is greed, and it doesn't solely explore that in the story beats and characters. It comments on greed with every single aspect of the DLC. Let me rant for around 20 minutes. I'm gonna sound a little unhinged, but I need to explain my thesis so I get an A+ in this goddamn class. Dead Money, right from the first door, tells you that it's for experienced players, level 20 and up. Now, Dead Money was the first DLC, and the max level when it was released was 30, or 35 now with the bonus levels added. So, it was expecting you to be at least 2/3 of the way to max level. That's pretty high. It's around that level that combat just turns into... Jesus, that's disgusting. You're approaching the point in a Fallout game where you become a demigod. Bullets barely hurt you, even on the harder difficulties, and you have so much ammo you don't need to count your shots. Dead Money knows this, and it pulls the rug out from underneath you right away by stripping away all of the overpowered gear you have, including your healing items and buffs. This is both annoying and extremely important. Dead Money wouldn't work at all if you had your Enclave power armor, unique weapons, and enough chems to get half of New Vegas high. The game wants you to think, this would be way easier if I just had Dinner Bell with me. It wants you to miss the fun and exciting Mojave Wasteland because that's the point. Why are you having fun when the entire world is annihilated? You're more concerned with getting bottle caps so you can buy the stupidly overpriced unique weapons at Gunrunners rather than rebuilding society. Dead Money gives you a reality check about the world your character is living in. New Vegas has an extremely hopeful tone, especially shown throughout how society is being rebuilt. Of course, there's dark themes and even darker story beats, but you're not always surrounded by ruins. The way NCR talks about Reno makes it seem like life is pretty close to going back to normal back west. There's enough of a government for it to get caught up in bureaucratic matters. This is a good thing, but it hasn't reached the Mojave yet. You've been able to appreciate all the hope strewn throughout the game because you don't actually have to worry about living in it. Fallout is a game. While you can be immersed and appreciate the world around you, no one really believes they'll die if their character does. If you get tired, you can turn off the game and do something else. It's almost impossible to simulate the sense of dread that living in an apocalypse would bring. Unless you're Dead Money. All of your security blankets have been stripped away and almost none of them are given back to you before the DLC is over. Death is around every corner and every hit you take hurts, because you don't know when you're going to be able to heal that stab wound. This on-the-edge, uncertain form of gameplay can be incredibly tense, hard, and feels so good. It was the first time I ever felt like the odds were stacked against me in a Fallout game. And that means something. Dead Money isn't hard just for the sake of being hard, though. The game wants you to think like someone who has survived in a world like this for years. So, in a stroke of genius, Dead Money gives you a chance by heavily leaning into the survival skill. Okay, I'm gonna say it. Survival is a pretty useless skill. In Fallout 1 and 2, it's called Outdoorsman. With it, you can... avoid random encounters. Do 3 survival speech checks. After New Vegas, it was completely cut as a skill. So why does it get its own section in the video? Dead Money forces you to appreciate and use it. Throughout the Sierra Madre are junk items the player normally doesn't even register as something to pick up. Things like glass pitchers, tin cans, and food items that restore minimal hunger or health. But each item is used for a survival crafting recipe. These recipes can turn dirty water into purified water, make junk food heal 75 health and give a bonus to your stats, and you can craft makeshift explosives to deal with the ghost people. The possibilities are mostly limitless. What I'm trying to get across here is that Dead Money is telling the player that survival isn't a skill that you should ignore in the game. As you raise survival to meet the skill requirements to actually craft these life-saving items, you start unlocking the survival-based perks. Taking any of these perks makes Dead Money infinitely easier and infinitely more interesting. My personal favorite is Old World Gourmet, which turns alcohol from an okay melee combat item into a god-tier healing item, especially in hardcore mode. I would mention the Them's Good Eatin' perk, which adds the extremely powerful healing items Blood Sausage and Thin Red Paste, but that perk is exclusive to Old World Blues. While I do use it in my footage, it wouldn't be fair to include something from the future in arguing why Dead Money stands above the other DLC. One last part of survival that I want to mention is the crafting recipes themselves. Many of them include household junk items. A cool feature that I noticed is that some recipes will return these household items to you, if it doesn't make sense for them to be consumed in the recipe. Such as with the water purifying combo, which requires 55 survival. You purify the 5 bottles of water, and the pitchers along with the tubing are given back. You only need one set of these items to make the recipe. A downside I always hear about survival builds is that you have to lug around a ridiculous amount of junk items. While obviously you're going to want ingredients, people who make this claim haven't done a survivalist build. You gather the tools that you need, but you don't need 30 pieces of surgical tubing to make 30 clean bottles of water. I'm using a lot of terms only people who have played Dead Money and Fallout would know. You're obviously the main audience for this video, but I'm going to move on to the story for a moment, so I can give newcomers the context they'll need for the rest of the video. There isn't a huge, grand, overarching storyline to why the courier, the player character, decides to check out the strange radio broadcast available on your Pip-Boy. It just appeared one day, taunting the courier into checking it out. By the time you would start Dead Money, much of the game turns into, okay, where do I go next to get better stuff and money? Now, this is fun, don't get me wrong. Knowing where all of the unique weapons are and beginning a pilgrimage to hoard all of them like a Brotherhood outcast isn't something to be ashamed of. Dead Money is making a statement on greed after all, so it's only fitting that the courier approaches for selfish reasons. A long-abandoned resort that no one in the Mojave knows about, potentially filled with riches beyond your wildest dreams? I'll be able to buy at least 2 Gunrunner's weapons with that kind of money. Thus, the courier leaves everything behind to chase the possibility of a payday. Oh, it's a bunker. Okay, I was expecting a bit more, but...
He'll be back. Sure as a conga drum's got a groovy beat. This program was...
Ah, that looks like a dead end over there. I'll catch it on my way back to the entrance. Oh, here we go, locked door. Terminal crack. This payday is getting more likely by the... Never mind. It's just some weirdo's home base. They got a weird vending machine in the corner. Is this person Brotherhood? Whatever. Loot what I can find, then get out. This is bullshit, man. I wanted some cool weapons. Maybe a new set of armored...
Let your eyes take in the luxurious expanse of the open desert under clear starlit skies.
Okay. I don't think you really need to tell me all this now, but...
Worries.
You've heard of the Sierra Madre Casino. We all have. The legend, the curses, foolishness about it lying in the middle of the city of the dead, buried beneath a blood-red cloud. A bright, shining monument luring treasure hunters to their doom. The world's most famous stars and entertainers were invited to its grand opening. An invitation was a sign of exclusiveness. The opening was supposed to symbolize a road to a brighter future, not just for the world, but for all who came to its doors. A chance for anyone to begin again. Except the Sierra Madre never opened. The war froze it in time, like a big flashbulb going off. The grand opening, one big ending of humanity. It's still out there, in the wastes, preserved, just waiting for someone to crack it open. But getting to it, that's not the hard part. It's letting go.
Alright, so you're immediately punished for playing the game like you normally do, which is fantastic, but I'll get to why later. We need to focus on the story now because I'm a real video essayist who structures their videos coherently! So you wake up and some schizophrenic weirdo starts ranting about cloud people and dog mutants. Okay, yeah, dickhead, I'll find your chihuahua or whatever. Oh, this guy has a lot of dialogue. Let me speak with this dude for a second and install a mod that fixes his voice audio so my ears don't explode when he speaks. Elijah is fantastically written. The way he speaks to you isn't as if he's paying attention, but as if you're just one-voiced amongst a crowd constantly yelling at him. He'll stop his sentences halfway through as a thought will take him somewhere else before he snaps back to your conversation. It's like I'm speaking to a wall and a man pointing a knife at my neck all at the same time. This initial conversation is mainly figuring out why this freak kidnapped you, why you have a bomb collar around your neck, and what are the rules of this game you're now stuck in. The most fun rule being, if one of your teammates dies, their death will trigger everyone's collars and then you'll have to scrape your brains off the ceiling. This rule essentially allows the writers to shove characters who hate each other together and force them to interact, when they would all rather just murder everyone in the vicinity and be done with it. Now that we have a bit of background information, let's get to work. I should put some AP rounds into my weapons are good! I already explained this bit, but just to reiterate, all of your possessions are taken from you, and Elijah actually does explain this. The Sierra Madre security system detects any inorganic matter with any trace of radiation and won't let it through, instead storing it in a box by the entrance so you can pick it all up once you're done with the DLC. How nice! Even nicer is Elijah does leave a weapon for you, the Hollow Rifle. It's an energy shotgun, it's so cool, but you're not gonna have too many shots with it, so it's best to scrounge around for some What the fuck is that? That is a ghost person, part of the Ghost People. A faction? Race? I'm unsure exactly what they are, all you need to know is they want you dead, and they themselves don't die. Well, they do, but you're gonna have to obliterate their limbs. As if the ghost buddies weren't enough to deal with, there is a red toxic cloud hanging over the entire villa. If you run through a concentrated pocket of it, you'll suffer a ton of damage for the time you spend breathing it in. If you're playing hardcore, just being outside hurts you. So with the entire world, including the air itself, trying to unalive you, you make your way to the Sierra Madre prison, where you meet Dog. Just appreciate this introduction.
Speakers and radios interfere with the bomb caller frequency and can trigger the detonators prematurely. It is an unfortunate side effect, one I did not anticipate. I was unable to calibrate the callers to block the signals, so you'll have to make do.
Oh, cool. Even my sound card is trying to kill me. God damn it, where is this guy's Pomeranian? So you find a way to turn off the radios, approach the cage, and play the voice tape you find in the basement to wake the mutant up from its nap. But, wait, this isn't Dog. It's switched. His name is God! I like them. They're pretty good. But to talk about them more in depth, they're the worst possible blunt rotation. Absolutely disgusting vibes all around. Let me explain what I mean by this. Every character you run into would rather you be dead or they get all of your supplies. None of them like you. At all. The furthest you get with them is they'll tolerate you long enough to get something out of the interaction. Of course, like everything else, they're in this for a reason. The game is subtly encouraging you to write off these characters as expendable. You're only here for one reason, and it sure isn't some ghoul sociopath. Speaking of Dean, he's my favorite. He's so cynical and self-serving that the player doesn't even realize he's acting exactly the same as the player the entire time. He just says what you want to hear to get what he wants. Trying to persuade or debate with him just wastes time and complicates the mission, and you can even get locked into his bad ending based on your very first interaction. Dean realizes the situation he's in with the player very quickly. He realizes he needs to keep you alive, so he'll drip feed you useful bits of info he's known for years and is willing to share. He even tells you about hidden supply caches all over the villa. Dean wants you to trust him, but he has no intention of ever trusting you. His plans never come to fruition, but you get a taste of what he's really like at the end of the DLC. Oh, and I haven't spoiled anything major. We've only talked about the first 45 minutes of the DLC so far, but consider this your one and only warning. Play Dead Money if you somehow haven't, and come back. The rest of this video will have spoilers sprinkled all around it. Christine's inability to speak instantly makes her a memorable companion, as her sense of duty clashes with her personal vendetta against Elijah for the entire runtime of the DLC. You come upon Christine during a very troubled time in her life. I mean, all of her vocal cords were ripped out. That does things to a person, and Christine already has had a lot happen to her. So much happens to her, you're reading about it in an entirely separate DLC. Christine is someone who understands they're on a self-destructive path, but has no intention of deviating from it. She believes she has sacrificed and destroyed too much for this goal, of murdering Elijah, to just let it go. Throughout the DLC, she's the character you can grow the closest to, but just like the others, you know she's beyond saving. And then there's Dog. Or God. Or Dog and God. They have an incredibly interesting take on a character suffering from mental illness, but I think you'll get more out of the duo from just talking to them yourself. So, without further ado, back to the story. You gather up the gang after going through the hellscape of ghost people, Kool-Aid jammer packets, and a bunch of TikTok flavor of the month music. And boy is Elijah happy about that. He's starting to think that this plan could actually happen with you at the helm, and he quickly gives you the second set of instructions. We have to drop off our 3 idiots in specific zones tailor-made to each of their skill sets. The Siberian Husky needs to use his canine strength to pull some levers. Christine needs to tap into her gamer girl mindset to program the Gala, and Dean, he needs to be a spark plug. This section of the DLC really hammers home the weaknesses of these characters. None of them have ever done a favor in their entire lives. You're all working towards escaping the villa, and these actions need to happen so you can find an escape route. If someone dies, you all die, so it only makes sense to just do what you're told so everyone can get out faster. But for some strange reason, all of these characters still need to be babied. The toy poodle needs some applewood smoked bacon strips to tide his hunger over until it's time to flip the switches. Christine needs you to set up Wi-Fi on a computer so she can watch the newest Dream SMP stream. Dean needs protection. He's actually got a valid reason to be pissed off, I'm not gonna lie to you here. After taking care of your unruly children, it's up to you to actually activate the main Gala event and open the doors to the Sierra Madre Casino. This is a really cool climax to the whole DLC. You've been sneaking around and avoiding combat whenever possible for the entire runtime up to this point, but the game is going to rip that safety net out from underneath you because of course it does. The moment you press that switch, every remaining ghost person knows your exact location. And they're hungry. After running around lost for a while, you eventually reach the gate to the casino and smash the E key until a loading scene triggers, taking you to the third and final act of the DLC. You take your first breath of fresh air in hours, and ironically it's laced with knockout gas. Funny how you can't even have 5 seconds of safety. When you come to, Father Elijah informs you that the link between callers has been severed, at least when you're on different floors. Predictably, his St. Bernard is going nuts downstairs and has managed to release enough flammable gas to level the entire building. So, make sure that doesn't happen. Rushing towards the basement, you hear the Pug and the Doberman fighting for dominance as the gasoline hissing throughout the room only makes their psyche even more broken. There's 2 ways to handle this situation. Turn off the gas valves and just murder man's best friend, or suck it up and do a speech challenge. Figuring out Dog's fate is a cool little ideology test rolled into a 15-minute conversation. Do you prefer the greed of hunger to rule a being's life, or do you want the greed of control to take over? Dog isn't an intelligent being, but does that mean he deserves to be killed? God is obviously the more stable personality, but does that mean he will make the best possible choices? Do either of them deserve to live if all they do is bring misery? You figure it out. Or have like 90 speech and skip a lot of the dialogue like I did. Whatever you choose, you stop the casino from exploding and you move on to making your way through the long abandoned floors of the Sierra Madre. You don't have to worry about the cloud, but there's no longer a place to hide from all the other dangers. The holograms thrive indoors. They can't be killed, only avoided. Being trapped in a room with them makes avoidance a lot harder. Instead of finding a route around speakers, you have to charge toward them, hoping you reach them in time to either break them or turn them off. When the ghost people start entering the casino, you're trapped in a large empty room with like 10 of them. You're outnumbered, outgunned, your friends are all turning against you, but the treasure is so goddamn close. Now, it's time to talk about how it all comes together, and why I made this video in the first place. I have to get some things off my chest. I'm a younger guy, but I'm really into older video games. The problem is, many of my childhood games came from the early 2000s when the vibe was, well...
This game is an atrocity.
It's revolting. It's violent. It's everything you love in a game. And your mom's gonna hate it.
Why would they even make something like this?
Dead Space 2, rated M for mature.
So I had a bit of a warped outlook on playing games. When I played a game, it was to be a big, strong guy with a big gun. I was like 12. That's what was cool. You know all those middle schoolers online that are weirdly obsessed with guns and using proper weapons terminology? They either have a TF2 character or a flavor of the month meme as a profile picture. I was one of those. I actually skipped most of a game's cutscenes even on a first playthrough. Everything started to change when Fallout 3 came out though. I was blown away. I didn't know a game could actually put most of its effort into the story. I became obsessed. Before I even had the game, I was looking up cool items and quests on the wiki. I didn't have any money, so I had to convince my parents to get it for Christmas. You all know this process. For weeks, I only thought about and participated in playing Fallout 3. It's very ironic that now I've played a lot of RPGs, I think Fallout 3 is one of the weaker instances of the genre. The most important thing I can say about it is that it taught me to play RPGs wrong. I rushed through 3, skipping a lot of dialogue, and I didn't really pay attention to the story beat. Now hold on. I said I was blown away by a game having a story. Why was I skipping stuff? Because I had already looked up what happened beforehand. I'm only doing the quest for the rewards so I could become invincible. It felt so cool just to become this wasteland legend through my own actions that I didn't really care how I got there. I only cared about the destination. The journey meant nothing. Dead Money forced me out of that mindset. When New Vegas came out, I played it the exact way I played 3, skipping dialogue and not giving a shit about the characters. I got powerful really quickly and ended up actually liking it more than 3 because the quests were a lot cooler and I liked the companions. I always looked up stuff, but it still stunned me that I wasn't really making any progress because of how dense the content in New Vegas was. When the first DLC came out, I bought it immediately. I was ready for more power. That's all the DLCs in Fallout 3 were to me, a way to get 1 or 2 minor upgrades to my godlike character. So I was extremely surprised by the opening to Dead Money. I immediately panicked. I didn't have any of my stuff. Not even stim packs, which I had so many I could just spam them throughout a tough fight. Without realizing it, I was forced to come to terms with how mindlessly I was playing games. I didn't really know the mechanics or how to survive because I only stuck with what was commonly known as the strongest playstyle of the time. I couldn't just look up what I needed on my phone because, haha, smartphones weren't widely available to a middle schooler at that time, which is really weird to say now. I was stuck in an endgame zone with almost no clue to what I was doing. Regardless, I pressed forward. I listened to every word Elijah told me. I needed to. I didn't know where I was, what I was doing, or even if I was making the optimal move. It was incredible. I didn't know games could make someone feel like this. I felt like a survivor, only my wits and luck getting me through each encounter. I went from a vault boy to a vault man in a little over 4 hours. I realized the trap that my greed had led me into. All of these characters were rude, malicious, and entirely correct. I was only here and feeling like this because I couldn't leave well enough alone. I heard the faintest whisper of riches and an upgrade that I dropped everything else and ran over. There was so much to discover and experience in the world that was crafted for me, but I only cared about getting the biggest and coolest gun. Nothing else mattered. I realized games aren't junk food potato chip to quickly eat and discard without a thought. They're a multi-course meal with time in between to consider and enjoy each of the flavors that were brought to the table. Each victory and treasure found was something wonderful that a team of people spent hours crafting to entertain and teach you. When I reached the inside of the casino, I realized I didn't care about the treasure at all. I was more excited to figure out how things were going to pan out for the characters. I was already such a high level that it didn't matter what weapons I was using, I knew I could get through. I wanted to find the best ending for these horrible characters. Not because they deserved them, but because I saw myself in all of them. They were just misguided. They wanted something so badly they didn't have a chance to look at everything falling apart around them. We've all been there. So focused on a singular goal that you don't even see the pitfall waiting for you just beyond it. I have to admit, I hadn't learned to let go yet. I just got my priorities straight. Dodging holograms and hacking security systems became second nature as you started moving through the quiet halls of the entertainment quarter. You've been picking up and learning recipes from the vending machines, so your loadout is starting to resemble an actual build that you can work with. Enemies stop being a nuisance and become a calculated move on a chessboard. The ghost people are all gathered in the lobby. I'm fine spending a few shotgun shells knocking to the ground, so I have enough time to get to the terminal at reception. A few quick taps of the keys and I've unlocked all the doors and disabled the speakers. When you get into the groove of Dead Money, it's a beautiful thing to behold. A pure force of survival, unwavering, unbending, hungry. By the time you reach Dean Domino, he's realized how deep the hole he dug himself into is. You are always the better shot, the more prepared. He needs time, some way to throw you off your game. So he does what he does best. He talks. He spills the beans, tells you everything you want to hear, hoping to shake you, make you mad, make you sloppy. He doesn't realize you're beyond mind games like that. After dealing with Dog, you know your companions can't be trusted to make their own decisions. Depending on your relationship with him, you can talk Dean down. It does seem a little anticlimactic after learning his role in the downfall of the Sierra Madre, in my opinion. So, in my playthrough, the two of us couldn't work together. It just wasn't in the cards. I have a soft spot for Christine. She's a great character, and the reveal of her voice is a great scene. A lot of unsaid things finally have a voice to articulate them. You're either meeting a wary ally or a scorned rival, depending on how you dealt with her issues throughout the DLC. I'm a good Karma simp boy, so we met on amicable terms. She starts with a tirade of questions, and if she's satisfied with the answers, she gives you a chance to do the same. Christine wants to kill Elijah, a completely understandable goal once she explains her history with the old man. It's only through conversing and listening to various holotapes that you learn that Dean is the one responsible for Christine's new voice. Only one room over is a voice recognition lock. The key? Vera keys. More specifically, her voice. Dean, being a little rapscallion, gave Vera's voice to Christine, and of course he didn't care about the excruciating pain that would cause. Regardless, you need Christine to speak a very specific, very famous phrase in order to power up the elevator leading to the vault. If you're on good terms, Christine can be talked into helping you, as long as you promise her you'll kill Elijah. A fair enough trade, so we accept. Now, we just have to deal with Grandpa. Exiting the elevator is a still moment. Elijah mumbles some more nonsense through the speakers, but he quickly quiets. He understands the confrontation between the two of you is inevitable, and you're younger, the faster shot. He needs time to plan, so he leaves you to your business. Only the crackle of distant electrical charges accompanies you through your final trek through the death trap of the Sierra Madre. The skill checks in this area can only be cleared if you're sitting in the 90s of the respective skill. The game knows you're above normal challenges and it respects that. Placement of traps and unkillable enemies isn't fair. That's the point. This is one of the few times the game is respecting the power level of your character. Your greed can't be stopped. You know you're at the end. If you hate the DLC, you're excited because it's almost over. Once you open up that vault door, it's only a boss fight away from going back to the safe, underpowered wasteland you're used to. Wait, why do you hate this DLC so much? Let's figure that out before the end. I love Dead Money. It's my favorite DLC, and it always hurts when randos rant about it like it killed their dog. Playing through it again, I have to be fair and talk about the failings that I found with the DLC. Being hard isn't a negative, but Dead Money is deceptively hard. Everything about the DLC is trying to kill you, and it's more framed as a kind of tough bank heist. On hardcore, even being outside makes your health slowly tick down. That's annoying and unfair. Maybe have a meter for cloud exposure, and once it goes past the threshold, you start losing health. That kind of programming was out of the budget, I understand, but the cloud mechanic itself deserved a little bit more time than it got, especially since it's one of the main pillars of the DLC. Everything revolves around the cloud, and it still feels like an afterthought. In gameplay, it just feels like radiation that hurts you rather than an all-encompassing enemy you have to manage along with everything else. Additionally, the DLC heavily favors one playstyle over the others. If you play as a science and energy weapons character, this DLC is a nightmare, because you have maybe 12 shots for the only useful energy weapon, and you're squishy, so melee weapons are more trouble than they're worth. But that's the only option for most of it. That sucks, and all it means is you have to spend extra time on an area because the game expects you to be a small gun survivalist rather than a laser weapons hacker. One last complaint, but it is a big one. One perk completely trivializes the DLC, and I only found out about it in my most recent playthrough. The perk I mentioned earlier, Them's Good Eatin', gives a huge 50% chance for a powerful healing item to appear on any enemy. These items heal a little bit less than a stim pack depending on your skill level, and you find them on ghost people. So with this perk, one of the main enemies in the DLC reliably drops stim pack level healing items. The whole point of this DLC is you're scrounging for survival, and one healing item is worth more than gold. The moment that feeling isn't prevalent, it just becomes another area to loot and shoot your way through. There's a lack of foresight in the story writing in that it doesn't account for the player being complete shitter and just sidestepping all the themes of the story to make out like a bandit. There's tons of videos online of people grabbing all the gold, sneaking past Elijah, getting in the elevator, and trapping the poor man in an empty vault, ensuring no one learned a single thing from this. Anyway, let's talk about the ending. My need to over-explain something is creeping up again. Once you reach the vault, it's a wonderful feeling. Everything was worth it. You can get in there, grab the treasure, deal with Elijah, and... Oh, fuck, the treasure's in gold bars. This is pre-war, of course! Fuck, they're 35 pounds. I can't carry all of these out of here. This was a complete waste of time. Right at the end, the game refuses to even give you a satisfaction of a treasure hoard reward. My very first playthrough of this resulted in me dropping as many items as possible so I could at least bring 3 or 4 of the bars home with me. It was such a desperate attempt to scrape together something from my efforts, but eventually, I stopped. I dropped all of the bars and went outside to face Elijah. It wasn't about the destination anymore. I only cared about the journey. That was so cool to me. The DLC forced me to interact with the themes of the writing on a gameplay level. I obviously didn't have the brainpower to articulate my feelings like this, but when I was watching the ending, the final words resonated with me because I actually learned to let go. I'm getting a little ahead of myself here. Let me break down step by step what the final encounter looks like. After working your way through multiple death traps of radios and holograms, you approach the vault and walk inside. The door behind you locks and Elijah appears on the screen in front of you. You can have one last chat with him, learning his motives, goading him into a face-to-face confrontation, or even surprisingly, joining his side. It's up to you. Each of these conversations are incredibly interesting and intriguing because Elijah is such a well-written character. His hunger for power leading to his downfall is something everyone should experience for themselves, so I've kept a lot of info on Elijah in the dark, and I'm going to keep it that way. Have this conversation for yourself, and make your own conclusions. I would love to read them in the comments below, so feel free to share them there. However, after this talk you can lock yourself in the vault, ensuring the treasure is yours, but dooming your character to a slow death from your own hubris. You even get an alternate ending for this. It's really cool the game lets you screw yourself over so royally. The only positive to this choice is you get to read an incredibly interesting message addressed to Dean Domino, the only person stupid enough to lock themselves in a vault for treasure. After sorting out the issue with the gold bars, you step outside to confront Grandpa. Everyone has been praying for him, and he's gotten too strong, so there's only 2 ways to deal with him. A cool shoot-gun pow-pow boss fight where everything explodes as you rush through the corridors back to the elevator, or you can actually sneak around him and trap him in the vault. A very fitting and ironic end for Elijah. After going up the elevator, you can turn on your Pip-Boy and listen to his insane ramblings of a final message. It's a really excellent piece of writing and voice acting work. If you haven't heard it before, I recommend checking it out right now. The rest of the DLC is pretty straightforward. You get to hear some narration about your choices in the ending slides, and you get one last look at the Sierra Madre Plaza before exiting back to the Mojave Wasteland. Wow! What an ending, am I right? I always liked how they didn't really know how to end the DLCs at first. They would just dump you in an area and go, okay, it's done, please leave. There's nothing left here, just go. Honest Hearts at least put a footlocker containing every unique item right in front of the exit gate, but not here. You can do a cool little roleplay walk and last look, but then you're just dumped back in the bunker. Dead Money is my favorite DLC, not just because it made me have an awakening where I snapped out of being an NPC, but because it's such a cool change of pace to everything. In New Vegas, you feel really strong for most of it. You're a god, essentially, and the Mojave is going to form itself into whatever you want it to be. Dead Money spits in your eye and reminds you that this is a dark, desolate, and bleak world. It's very reminiscent of the tone of the first 2 Fallouts, and it's really cool to feel that way again. Many nerds like the original Fallouts more than the newer entries because for all of the silliness, it still felt like the wasteland was a horrible place to live. You're only in this situation because you have to, and nobody online thinks it would be great to live in the Fallout universe. I mean, other than Fallout 76 players. Dead Money is many things. It's a return to form, it's a new experience, it's an attempt at making the player think. Ultimately, I think, Dead Money is a commentary on greed. Everyone in the DLC is hungering for something, including the player, and none of them quite get it. Dog and God achieve peace, but they lose almost everything about themselves. Dean Domino is a timeless star, but who cares about that now? Christine doesn't even kill Elijah herself. You have to do it for her. The player and Elijah don't get the treasure, if you're not a shithead. Fallout 3 created a whole new breed of Fallout fan. I know because I used to be one. These are people who thought it would be cool and fun to live in the post-apocalypse, collecting a huge hoard of cool items and badass abilities to make sure no one could stand up to you. Dead Money reminds us that's not the way to live in a world like this. No amount of virtual military LARPing is going to fix the deeply rooted problems humanity innately has. You can't constantly hunger and want for something without becoming a monster. How many people does the player kill simply because they want to? Because they have a cool item? Because they have a key the player needs to progress? It's impossible to count, and I don't think Dead Money even wants you to. They just want you to be aware of it. Be at a point where you know when too much is too much. You know when to let go. A cool little send-off that I really like is the message the radio repeats once you leave the DLC. I can't think of a better ending to this very long video than Vera Keyes herself. Or maybe it's Christine saying goodbye. Who am I to say?
Wait a moment. Before you go, we hope you've enjoyed your stay. Farewells can be a time of sadness. Letting go, difficult. As a guest of the Sierra Madre, you know that truth more than anyone. Frederick Sinclair believed one's life could be made anew every day, that fortunes were more than the wealth in your hands. Love, life, family, those to care for, and those who will care for you. To those who know these joys, the Sierra Madre holds little they don't already have. Out in the world, beyond these walls, that is your chance to begin again. I hope you'll return in happier times. Until then, the Sierra Madre and I will hold you in our hearts.
Thank you for watching the video and making it all the way to the end. I really appreciate it. I put a lot of work into this, and I'm really sorry that it took a really long time between this video and the last one. I'm trying to work on that, I really am. I think I'm in a place where I'm pretty stable and can create more artistic stuff now that I have the time. But thank you for anyone who has stuck around for this long. I upload shorter content on my TikTok account, which is kind of a mini video essay. They're like 1 minute, 2 minute long, maybe 3 minutes. But if you want more of me, go there. I'll still be making videos here, obviously, because YouTube allows me to go for a lot longer, and that's required with some topics because I'm a big think boy. But end of the line, thank you so much for watching, and I'm excited for you to see the next one. How am I going to carry all this?